I wanted to show you an interesting problem. I don't think that I uncovered, but I ran into that. I'm trying to figure out a solution for it. Maybe somebody can give me some help with it. But essentially, the problem is this. Let me pull the topology up. So, in the topology that I'm working in, um, I have a network. Well, this is the surface of product core. Specifically, what's happening here is that I have my PE routers there, my core routers there, and then my CE routers are out on the edge there. And specifically, I have a mixture of different peering types just so for my test. I can be familiar with the different ways to get after the pairing types, but in particularly what I did here is that this side I'm actually doing an eBGP peer between this router here, and I am utilizing the IPv4 address, but then it's also negotiated the IPv6 unicast family as well. Um, so what would need to happen just because of the next hop processing in BGP because it does it based off of that session IP. When I'm advertising my IPv6 routes to my CE router, I need to modify that next hop. And so in the configuration, I'm actually doing that. And so let's pull up the config file because I sent this to my buddy a second ago. So I want him to look at this too. So if I look at the configuration for my PE router here, same router. This is this router here. Um, we're gonna look and see where it says there's my BGP configuration here. So I have a policy, a template policy that's associated with the neighbor, so you can see where I'm talking about in the neighbor interfaces. So here's my session information, and as you can see, the session is done based off of the IPv4 address, and I have a session template that I'm using to give me all my credentials and all that good stuff. So as far as the IPv6, each address family essentially has its own policy associated with that, and then with that, um, I have the route maps associated with those policies. And if we look at the route map IPv6 out, you can see that we set the next hop here. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually setting the next hop value to the connected interface IP of the eBGP router here, of the PE router. So when he sends updates to the CE router, when the CE router receives those updates, he's going to get the next hop being this interface here. So when he forwards traffic and he does his route recursion, his recursion is actually going to send him over this interface, this connected interface, because they're essentially in the same subnet from an IPv6 perspective on that single interface as well. Um, so that's one of the that's kind of going high level on just what the intended operation is. So after I do the implementation, it works perfectly fine. And let me just show you guys in the router. Just do a few show commands. So I'll show you in the router. Go on PE1, show IPv6. Or I'm gonna say show BGP IPv6 unicast. And what I want to do unicast summary first, because I want to look at the advertised routes. So we're going to do this summary, and we're going to do neighbors advertised routes. Now, as you know, this is going to be pre-policy, right? So essentially, even though the policies apply to that neighbor, pre-policy, this is what the packets look like before going out there and going to my neighbor. Actually, oh yeah, yeah, and it's going to be originating that default network there. So we see that, right? Let me see if policy. No, that's not what I want. No, routes learned. Advertise. Yeah, you know what? Advertise. But like I said, essentially it's not going to do that. But when I go to the CE router, when I look, those same prefixes, because it went through the policy, you can see the modified versions here of the next hop that I had set, right? And that's why I'm able to put it in my BG in my routing table and select it as a best path. But for some odd reason, when I go in for the default route, it doesn't change the next hop. So I'm looking and I do see where the command um, default originate only looks for a couple of commands. It does the origination. Well, I'm sorry, the next hop processing only happens on a couple of commands, but I can't find anything that tells me whether locally originated um, prefixes, if it's or I'm sorry, not locally originated, but when you're using the default originate command, if that is subjected to next hop processing locally from that router, because technically when I have that route map applied, I in my mind should be modifying that next hop because I'm doing it for every outbound update, BGP update going to the CE router. But for some reason, that's not happening. Um, and it's kind of hard to tell if it's broken or if it's something in the code or what, but it's just, to me, it should be working, and it's not. So, just wanted to document this for later. Probably gonna turn this into a blog post, but see if anybody can possibly help me out with this. Thanks.